Hi everyone, I hope you're doing well, and the Lord had given me something to share with someone today. So what I have been hearing from the Lord for you is that you will have victory in the coming days because you are the bigger bear. You are the bigger bear. And so God had been speaking to me through an event that happened a couple weeks ago. And I had been staying with a family member out in the country, deep country, near a wildlife refuge. Their yard actually backs up onto a wildlife refuge. So I had been outside that morning having my morning quiet time and prayer time. And I was out, and my two little dogs were out with me. And if you haven't seen them before, my dogs are just little lap dogs. They're both small and they're not tough country dogs. But anyways, we were outside and I saw out of the corner of my eye a very large, full-grown, hefty black bear walking right through the backyard. And so I ran towards the door to go inside and get out of its way. And I realized that my two little dogs were back there in the yard with him. And so I started screaming at them and yelling their name. And I knew that black bears weren't the most aggressive type of bear, but I also knew that if you provoked them or if you attacked them, they could bite you, they could claw at you, they could hurt you and do some damage. And so I was screaming at my dogs, and I see this big bear. I'm yelling for them to get in the house and get out of the way. And then before I knew it, my two tiny little dogs ran up to this bear and attacked this bear. And when they did that, I screamed because I thought that the bear was just going to turn and maul them. But instead, the bear looked back at them for a second, and they were barking at the bear, and the bear took off running. He ran across and swam across a channel that was behind the house and went back into the wildlife refuge. And so the Lord had been speaking to me through that, and I knew that this was a word for others in the body of Christ, where he was saying, you are the bigger bear. You are the bigger bear. I know sometimes it may not seem that way. I know sometimes we may not look that way to ourselves or even to others. But we have victory not because we are so large, not because we have big teeth and big claws, not because we are so powerful and strong, but because of the name of the Lord. Our victory is in the name of the Lord. And I don't know what it is that you have been facing lately, or what specific set of circumstances has been trying to raise itself up above you and say, I'm bigger than you, I'm badder than you, I'm above you, and trying to back you into a corner and back you down. I don't know what that set of circumstances are for you, but what the Lord would say to you is, remember that you are the bigger bear. Remember that the bear will flee from you. He had also been speaking to me about a barley loaf victory, and reminding me of the story of Gideon. Remember, Gideon, at that time, the Israelites had been attacked by the Midianites. The Midianites were this huge horde of army that rode in on camels. They lived in tents. They were like desert people, and they were like nomads. And so the Israelites would grow their crops, and then whenever they had harvest time, after all the work and they were harvesting their crops, the Midianites would come in like locusts and just steal everything and rob everything from them, come in and just take everything they could and just leave. And they were such a huge, powerful army that the Israelites couldn't stop them at that time. And so we remember the story that Gideon was hiding out from them doing his agricultural things, and he was doing it in hiding because he was afraid of them. And how Gideon became the one who was going to lead Israel in victory against the Midianites. But we see in many times where Gideon is just unsure that he is the one who will be able to lead them into victory, although the Lord had been trying to speak this to him through angels and through other ways. But we see at one point where it's the time for Gideon to fight the Midianites, and the Midianites have encamped against the Israelites, and they're waiting for war. And the Israelite army, Gideon's army, is very small, and the Midianites are like this huge, vast horde. And so, of course, Gideon is afraid. And God says to him, take your friend and go down to the Midianite army, and you will be encouraged by what you hear there. And so he takes his friend and he goes down, and he hears one of the Midianites talking about a dream that he had had the night before. And what this soldier is saying is that he had a dream of a barley loaf that rolled into the camp and knocked over one of the tents. And he took this to signify that Gideon was going to win, and his army were going to win the victory against the Midianites. So Gideon heard out of the mouth of his enemy something that encouraged him, which was that even his enemy was seeing at that time that Gideon would gain the victory against them. And what the Lord had been speaking to me about this particularly is how Gideon was a farmer, okay? He was not a warrior. He was not a soldier, but his victory was going to be in the name of the Lord. He didn't have to be anything other than what he was. Like, he was a barley loaf, so to speak. His emblem was a barley loaf. If we think about different sports teams, for example, they might be represented by an alligator. They might be represented by an eagle. They might be represented by a bear as their mascot. They tend to be represented by things we think of as fierce or fast, formidable opponents. But Gideon and his army were represented by a barley loaf, a loaf of barley bread, which just is not a very intimidating thing, right? A loaf of barley bread just seems very neutral and not scary whatsoever. In fact, barley was considered a rougher grain. It was less valuable than wheat. With wheat, you could grind it very fine, and you can make all sorts of different, you could bake pastries with it. You can make all sorts of different fine breads with it. Barley is very rough and is full of fiber. It doesn't have a lot of gluten to glue it together. So really you can't make much with it besides a pretty rough and dense loaf of bread with it. So it's very humble. It's very humble. And Gideon was going to win the victory exactly as he was. Gideon did not have to be anything other than what he was. Gideon was a farmer, and he was going to win the victory as a farmer. And so the Lord was showing him this through the barley loaf knocking over the tent, and his enemies realized that Gideon was going to gain the victory because they were farmers, and he would gain the victory as a farmer. Just like David knew he was the bigger bear. David fought the lion and the bear because he knew that he he was the bigger bear in the situation because of the name of the Lord. David could fight Goliath because he knew he was bigger than the giant because of the name of the Lord. And when David fought Goliath, David did not have to dress. In fact, he refused to dress in the armor of the king. Saul offered David his armor, and David refused it because David knew that he would win the victory, not being anyone else, not pretending to be anything other than what he was, which at the time was a shepherd boy, was a shepherd. He tended his father's sheep. And so David fought the giant, not with armor, but in the name of the Lord, not with a sword, but in the name of the Lord was his victory. And that's what I've been hearing from the Lord, is that you will see your victory in the coming days because of the name of the Lord. Our power is in the name of the Lord. Your power, my friend, your power, believer, is in the name of the Lord, and that you will have victory in that name. You don't have to be anything other than what you are. You don't have to be anything other than what you are today. You know, people looked at David and they didn't see him as king of Israel. But God could look into his heart and see what he truly was. But for man, it was harder to see. When David said he was going to fight Goliath, Saul couldn't see David winning the victory. He did not see David that way. But the Lord knew what was inside of David. And so, you know, just like you would look at my frou-frou little dogs and not think they could fight off a big black bear, and certainly not that the black bear would run. That is what the Lord is saying. Even though you may not look that way, it may not look right now like you're going to get the victory. You will get the victory exactly as you are because of the name of the Lord. I bless you with that today, friends. I look forward to talking with you next time.